Good evening, everyone. Welcome to LFC Transfer Room. Finally, a decent time to be streaming after the Champions League game for match reaction now, after an early kickoff by Champions League standards, of course. 1-0 win, penalty, Mo Salah. Not necessarily the most eventful evening of them all, but certainly some topics to be discussed. Good to have you here with us. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, please, and of course, leave your thoughts in the comments as well. Reese, mate, how's your evening?
Not too bad, to be fair. Obviously, the first, I would say, in terms of the game, I more watched mainly the second half. I kind of watched bits and pieces of the first half, but I was kind of sorting out a few things. But it's been quite a busy, like busy evening. Obviously, happy Liverpool got the 3 points. Would have liked to seen a few youngsters or a few other squad players kind of get some more minutes. Elliot obviously came on. I would have liked him to have maybe started the game or get a bit more minutes. But obviously, I'm assuming he's managing his minutes. And I was happy to see Allison back to get some minutes as well.
Indeed, I was I don't know what I was expecting. Honestly, I thought we would rotate a bit, but then at the same time, I think Slot has said a few times now this season that he's just going to play his best 11 pretty much every time. So you don't really know what you're going to get. I think it was just for us now. It was about getting the win. Now we're through basically, and so we're probably going to approach the other two games with a bit more. Let's say peace of mind, I suppose. I think for us the plan was always going to be to get this done, get qualified this evening, and then obviously we can rotate by midweek next week, obviously when we have Southampton in the Carabao Cup. Stu, mate, how's your evening?
Not bad, considering the result. Yeah, okay, the game wasn't the best. Let's be honest about it. It wasn't the best game in the world, but as I say, 3 points is all that matters, and we're qualified through to the next round pretty much. As I say, looking at the maths of it, I don't think we can get knocked out of the top 8. So all in all, a good evening. No injuries. I was surprised a little bit that the team wasn't rotated a little bit more, but that's Slot's decision at the end of the day. I think he may have looked at it and thought, okay, I just want to guarantee this more than anything else. And to be fair, actually, I didn't know what to expect from Girona. I didn't know too much about them, but looking at their team sheet, they actually look like the Premier League rejects 11. So I was quite surprised at how many names I recognised in that side.
Yeah, it was well, and they didn't look too bad, didn't they? Like
No, actually, no, they didn't. No, they played. They surprised me a little bit. They did play pretty well. And they gave us a fairly decent game. So I can understand why they've done so well over the last couple of seasons. But that low block tactic, I hate that tactic with a passion.
Yeah, I think it's been, for us Liverpool fans, I think we've had bad experiences, I think, in the past with that sort of tactic many times, and so I guess that's why you kind of have to. I think we kind of have to give it to them, though. I think, especially with the way they started the campaign in the Champions League with 3 points in 5 games, I think you would, they were trying to do whatever they could. Fortunately, it wasn't enough. Michael, how's your evening, mate?
Yeah, my evening have been good. Good evening, everyone from Nigeria. Yeah, it's good to see that in the Champions League we're doing so good as we. I mean, as the matches keep coming on. I didn't expect much from this match. Sincerely, the results is not shocking to me. I don't expect. I didn't expect us to blow Girona away like maybe some persons would have expected because we have gotten to that time of the year when some of these players are beginning to feel the impact of almost everyday football. And yes, they are professionals, but then we expect that there should be tired legs. There have been really strong matches they played recently, playing the likes of Man City, Arsenal, and Man City, and the other teams that have been coming by lately, and then the Champions League, going in and out of the club football, and then trying to cover up for some spaces. And it has been a really tight one for them. So I feel so far in the Champions League we are really doing well. Going away to play Girona and then get a win is not an easy thing to come by. And for you to be in the Champions League, of course, you're rated as a champion. So it means that you need to put an extra effort to be a winner, especially in the Champions League. So for me, I think the team did pretty cool, but not as much that we would expect from when you say Liverpool and then you say Girona. People will expect, oh, 3 goals to nil, 4 goals to nil. Yeah, but but this is football, and football is upgrading and advancing with time. So yeah, 3 points is what's important at this moment. So that's cool.
Yeah, I think usually in the Champions League, I feel like you kind of have to give everyone the respect they deserve in the end to be they've won their place to be here in this competition, and then obviously I think it's I do see people like that online a lot of the time. We play, especially when we play in the Europa League as well. People are saying the same about Atalanta, but then again, look at them. You don't know what you're gonna get, especially I feel like the level has kind of risen in both competitions ever since the introduction of the Conference League is also. Yeah, we're actually going to get into this question by James because we've all hinted at it at least. Reese, you did say you were expecting to see maybe some other players start the game, and well, quite honest, so was I. Especially with the month that we're going to have, because now we know that by the end of December we're going to play every 3 days, and we're going to play. We don't necessarily have the easiest games in the league either. We're going to play Fulham at home, who aren't an easy side, and I think we do remember from last season the kind of problems that they posed at Anfield. Then obviously you're going to have what was it, like 88th and 94th minute? I think we won that game. So yeah. And then obviously we're going to have Southampton in the Carabao Cup, and then Spurs. But until then, a bit more team, let's say, rotation would have been maybe desirable for tonight, right?
No, 100%. Right now, I wouldn't say man management is a worry, but it could become a worry if we were to get injury to a key player. Like I said before, I would have liked to seen Elliot, because obviously I think he was back the weekend just gone. Obviously that game was postponed, but I think he's been back for around a week now. I would have liked to seen a few youngsters. I can't remember some of the names off the top of my head, but I did hear that a few youngsters did travel with the squad, so I thought maybe he might have had plans to play some of them. But
sorry, Reese, on that one, a lot of the youngsters played Girona in the under-21s as well, so a lot of them couldn't be picked.
Okay. But it's even Michael, I think, said as well, or one of you said that he does like to pick his strongest 11, kind of similar to Klopp. I understand, but I just feel it could come back to bite us because you are kind of managing 4 tournaments, and we've seen in the past managing 4 tournaments further down the stretch, come the end of the season, the team does burn out. So a little disappointed that we didn't see the team kind of freshened up, because I think if the team was freshened up, because you've got hungry players coming in, I think we probably would have won that game a bit more comfortably. Whereas today, the team won, but you could see how the team was playing. It's like we were kind of holding back a bit in some senses there. Hence why it was only quite a boring 1-0.
Yeah, I think a few weeks ago I said on stream that realistically, if we're going to get a long time injury to either one of our center backs or to one of Maka, Grav, or Jones, that's going to be a pretty big problem for this season, because obviously when you're going to play every 3 days, you're going to have to find different solutions. Now we've seen it with that Konate is going to miss probably for like 6 weeks. I mean, not from now, but obviously from when he got injured. And so it feels like, it's a bit risky, like Mew said on chat as well. I think Gravenberg has played a lot this season, and with him being still fairly young. This kind of you can look at it two ways. He's young, so he has the stamina to play, but then at the same time, he maybe doesn't have the experience. Maybe he can, let's say, conserve the energy as much as someone who's a bit older and more experienced would be able to do. And so I feel like these are problems. If we manage to keep our center backs and DMs healthy throughout the season, then we obviously can do well. And that's kind of the challenge. I feel like. Stu, was it a stronger 11 than you expected as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, without a doubt. I think I agree on the side, like sort of bit of rotation. We've got to be careful. I mean, could we do another season where we go all the way in 4 competitions and take it down and do maximum games again? Only a couple of seasons after we did exactly the same thing. It's a big ask. We've got the squad that can do it, but game management and player management really needs to come into it, especially over the winter period. Grav, especially, he has been, obviously, we've sung his praises all season. He's been phenomenal and probably saved a bit of money for the club as well, realistically speaking. But we do need somebody to cover him specifically if the worst comes to the worst. But then you also got players like Salah. He's a robot, he's a machine, and it Energizer Bunny who just seems to keep on going forever and ever. But sooner or later, you're going to have to get some cover in for him as well. But who can cover that spot as well? We've got to start looking at options of who can cover where. Are the youngsters that we've got really good enough to help cover those bits, or are we going to start looking at bringing players in January? Now that Slot's had a few months with the squad, he'll know where he'll want to put players or where he'll want replacements bringing in. Just as a final point as well, I saw this stat and I thought it was a very interesting stat. Mo Salah is now the first player for Liverpool in their history to score 50 goals in Europe.
Decent.
That's not bad, is it?
Yeah.
That's another record for him. That's another one. Stick that in the contract.
Yeah, decent, whatever, 7 or 8 season wonder now, isn't he?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, player management, it does need to come into it. And I think it will do over the Christmas period, especially for the Southampton game, the Carabao.
Yeah.
I think we'll definitely see some rotation there, without a doubt.
It's like it's not even you don't even care about it that much. Like even if we end up losing that game, it feels like we've tried. It's whatever. You care about a Carabao Cup if you're like in the semifinals, let's say. But that's kind of where it is for me at least. Also want to reply to this comment as well. So obviously at right back I was thinking you can play Bradley. Yeah, I wouldn't be with Kwanzaa. I know he hasn't been, he hasn't been necessarily, hasn't had a great season this far, though I do feel like he could get some game time now, especially in games like this. At DM, I do agree and understand that we were a bit short-staffed, let's say. But if we're going to play someone at DM, as Jamie said, we could obviously play Endo, and then obviously we have to think about Morden, as Stu said about the youngsters. We do have Morden there, and we've kept him and sold Bobby Clark, was it, at Salzburg. So if we decided to keep Morden, then obviously we're going to have to give him some game time at some point. And for me tonight, if I would have seen Morden in the first 11, I wouldn't be like, upset or concerned or anything like that, because I feel like this is a type of game that you can test some of these youngsters, especially against aside from Spain, where the tempo is not going to be that high and they're going to have a bit more time, and obviously you can think about it that way. So for me, that's kind of how I feel like. Michael, how about you? Do you consider the starting 11, did you consider it a bit too strong, or was it needed, let's say, in order for us to get through and get the win?
Yeah, I quite agree with Stu. a bit of what Reyes has said earlier. I think yeah, we would have rested some of the key players, especially the likes of Salah, maybe bring in some other. I mean, yeah, I mean, if we had rested, especially the key players like Gravenberch and the likes, like we needed to rest some of these players so that we give some kind of ease and reduce the tension around the injuries that we have cutting across some of the players, and that would have helped the team prepare for much bigger games that are coming in. So I quite agree with the last two speakers about yes, we needed to rest a few of our players. Hopefully, we get to do that in the Southampton match, like you mentioned earlier. Maybe in Fulham, yeah, because Arsenal. You don't like that, right? You know what? Yeah, I'm thinking that. I mean, we mustn't start our best 11 in the Fulham match. All we need to do is just maintain the defense line, and ensure that no goals come in. And then maybe in second half we can bring in our strikers fresh to. I mean, the attackers fresh to kill the match and make it a win for us at the end of the day. Because the regular use of this starting 11 all through the matches, I mean, it's putting too much pressure. We don't want the situation that happened with Konate to happen to the likes of Salah, the likes of Gravenberch, and yeah, we just had Jota come in. I mean, coming in from injury. Imagine him going back to injury again, and then we're left with Nunes. I mean, that's a whole lot. So we want to try to manage the players so that they don't have too much pressure on them, especially at this time when it's almost Christmas break. Players want to chill with family and all that. I mean, we need to be really conscious about all this situation and manage it effectively, so that we don't have to run into the January break and scampering for players here and there because we need to maintain our squad. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, so I think for us, getting through December and then well, January as well, I think is going to be quite the test now, especially with, I don't know about you, but me, I always had this feeling that in the past few seasons, winter was was a pretty tough time for us. We started to drop points a lot in December. I don't know if this was like or I don't know if I'm remembering wrong, but I do have this feeling they usually would drop points in somewhere at the end of December when games were starting to come in thick and fast. So um that's also something to take into account. And yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Fulham, such a tough side, and I think it's underrated in a way how tough they are. With someone like, let's say, Brentford, you're going to have a tough away game, but at home they're pretty manageable. But somehow someone like Fulham, they're just always like, you remember the way they played at Anfield last season, and then also when they beat us in 2021. Even though we're losing against everyone, but and that's at home, but that's another thing. So this one, I know this is going to be a pretty tough question. So Reese, you're going to be first to answer, and I'm sorry. Man of the match, who impressed tonight? Because it just feels like everyone could be like around a 6 or a 7. No one was too great, no one was shit. So that's kind of the way it was.
That's quite a tricky question. I don't know if I could give an answer straight away. Because there wasn't really no stand-up performances. I wouldn't really say there was anyone that performed like a 10 or a 9. It was one of those games that kind of was just passing you by, like you said, maybe 6s or 7s. I'm not sure. If you're going off by goals, then you'd have to give it to Salah because he scored again. If I had to give it to someone off the top of my head, just because he scored yet again, and obviously all the news circulating about contracts, all he seems to be doing is just applying more pressure by scoring each and every game. So because this game wasn't a great watch, if I had to give it to someone, it would be Salah. But yeah, other than that, I can't really think of anyone because minus him scoring, I would still say his performance was maybe a 7. Most players was maybe 7, 6s. It wasn't really a game they looked up for. It was more they knew that we've already won most of our games, and they probably kind of looked at this game as we're going to beat this team, but we don't really have to perform out of gear one.
Yeah, so it does feel like pretty much everyone was well. It does sound off saying that, but it pretty much everyone was average tonight, wasn't it? When they like it didn't necessarily feel like one of the best games we've seen this season. Stu, would you agree with Muse, Allison, man of the match?
Yeah, actually, I would. I think honourable mentions for. I know Robbo actually got the man of the match award tonight, but honourable mention for him and Gomez as well. I think Gomez was pretty solid. He only had, I think, one sloppy mistake that got picked out, but like you guys have said, average performances all the way through. It's very difficult to pick out a man of the match, but at the end of the day, Ali's first game back, and he made, I think it was 6 saves in his first game back after a couple of months. Just shows the class of the keeper. He's outstanding. To be missing that amount of football and then coming straight in with a man of the match performance. Solid. Absolutely solid. Sorry, there is another thing as well. I've been challenged to something in the chat. So I'm going to do it quickly. God's sakes. When I get myself into this. Bit of the old Peter Crouch robot. There you go.
Ooh. In an evening of average performances, that's been another one. But
I'll take the man of the match for that one.
Yeah, we'll take it. And also not bad for a backup keeper, wasn't it? That performance. Good. Okay, so that's the clippable bit out of this live stream, out of the way now. Michael, your thoughts on man of the match?
So yeah, I like the last two speakers said, it was an average performance. Yeah, we can't keep delving on that. But then, yeah, if we have to pick one person, personally for me, I would say it's between Allison and Gravenberch, because imagine if Allison were to be sloppy coming from injury, it would have cost us goals, and then we would have probably drawn or lost the match. So for me, I think it would be Allison. But then it takes a lot to maintain the tempo around the midfield so that we don't have too much pressure coming in from the attack and from Girona. So it's between Allison. But if I'm to pick one person, I'll just go with Allison. Yeah.
Fair enough. I think that's someone we can all agree on. All right. Well, one thing that I also wanted to discuss, and I feel like this is a conversation that we're gonna have to have like every few streams, just because it gets so heated, let's say debated in the chat. I think you can kind of guess where I'm going with this. I wanted to get everyone's thoughts on Nunez's performance tonight. Let's say it feels like once again, people on Twitter and in our chat as well weren't too happy with him. So Reese, where do you stand on this?
He's still got till the end of the season for me. Obviously, right now it doesn't look great because, in terms of his actual role and what we actually want from Nunez, which is regular goals, we're not really getting that. I'm not sure how many goals he's got in all competitions. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 goals, which is not really a great return. Obviously, he does work hard for the team. If you look at it from that aspect, he works hard, he tracks back, he always tries. And what I will give him credit for is when he does miss chances, he never hides. Where some strikers do tend to hide, he keeps going and he does try. But for me, I just, like I said, I'm gonna give him till the end of the season. But I don't really think he fits Slot's style of play. Obviously, some fans, some people I've spoke to have said that maybe Slot is asking something different of Nunez, but obviously only Slot and Nunez will know what instructions are being told. But I also think he doesn't look that confident, because maybe he's asking him a sign, but there's times when he does certain things, like the Newcastle game, everything's in a rush. So you could tell he kind of wants to do well, but the fact that he's in his third season and he doesn't seem that composed or relaxed. He seems nervous. He seems like he has to force things. That is quite a worry. Today, the performance is wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the greatest. It's kind of what Nunes has kind of been this season. So yeah, I'm still gonna wait until the end of the season, but at the minute, it's not looking too great. And you can tell Slot doesn't really trust him, because if it's not Jota playing, he plays Diaz as the 9, and Diaz is not his first position, is not natural striker. So that kind of tells a story for me.
Yeah, I think as I've said, I think we've discussed this a lot, and I think it's pretty much, let's say, similar most of the time. I feel like for me, I said it as well. I think this is his final chance, the third season. But now looking at it, half a season in, yeah, it doesn't look too great, doesn't it? And I feel like, as you said, I do feel like his role in the team has kind of changed a bit, let's say, from the last 2 seasons. I think this season, he doesn't really get in a position where he, let's say, in familiar positions for him that much. I think he works a lot more off the ball now. So I'll have to give him that. I think we all, commend his, let's say, pressing ability. But at the same time, the thing that kind of makes me think like we should just probably sell in the summer is probably the fact that, for me, when I have a striker there, when he gets in those one-on-ones, I want to see him score most of the time. And it feels like Nunez misses most of the time. And when he does take a one-on-one, it's more of we get a bit, wow, he actually scored that, because it feels like you're more used to him missing sitters and one-on-one chances, and that's kind of the problem for me. Stu, would you agree? Would you think that we've seen enough of Nunez? Probably.
God, I really don't want to rail on the guy at all, but I've got to look at this from a standpoint now of, we've spent 85 million on a striker, and the striker's main job is to score goals. He hasn't been doing it. Now, we can love him for his work rate, and he plays for the shirt, and he gets the fans going. Absolutely love that. Not faulting that one bit. But at the end of the day, when you're bought into a club on such big money to score goals and put the ball in the back of the net, and you're not doing it, and it's not just 1 season, 2 seasons, as you say, we're into the 3rd season now. Yes, under a different manager this season, but even still, it's not good enough, especially when you look at the likes. Well, prime example, Man City. Man City are the one that won titles. Who have they got up front? Another robot, Haaland. Nunes is nowhere near him, and he came in at the same year. And I know there was comparisons there, probably a little bit harshly, but in all respect, I don't think the Nunes transfer would have been done at Liverpool if Edwards was still there either. I don't think the data would have matched up with it at all, and I don't think we would have been spending 85 million on him. I think Benfica had us over a barrel there, big time, and we're paying the price for it now. I feel for the guy. I really do feel like you can see he's trying hard. You can see that he's lacking confidence, but I just don't think it's worked out. And sometimes that just happens. There's no explanation for it. It just doesn't work. And I think, as I say, when it comes to the summer, he's off, and we need to get a proper out-and-out striker who is actually going to start taking the pressure off Salah.
Yeah, I do. The point that I don't actually, let me get there. I have another point to make before that. The thing that I was, first of all, I do agree, and that's kind of the thing that I was. That's kind of my thinking as well. He does work a lot off the ball. He has good link-up play with Mo a lot of the time. Obviously, I think they're both better when playing with each other when playing by each other. Sorry, on the on the pitch. But then it does feel like every time it's a bit underwhelming. It feels like for me, and don't have my head for this, but it feels like even the goal he scored against Villa was slightly lucky, wasn't it? Because he didn't, the dribble wasn't necessarily that great, and he basically the ball got in between Martinez's arms. It just feel like way too many times he misses those one-on-ones, and that's kind of how I feel. For me, I get it if you don't have service, right? If you don't get balls, then that's it. But when you get chances and you miss them most of the time and you're a striker, I just want my striker to be able to finish those off. And, when I see comparisons with Bobby Firmino, for example, I mean, come on. I think Bobby Firmino, we all know what role Firmino had. And I think we know that when he got into positions like those, you wouldn't see this type of misses from Bobby. So it's just the way that it is. I think for me as well, just by the way, I think you can kind of guess where the season is going for him. I don't see him turning it around and scoring 15 goals in 6 months now. And so, that's how I feel like for me as well, it would be a sell in the summer. And I do think that was a great point. I do think we wouldn't have spent the amount that we did had it been in. I think for me, one very, very interesting point that I've seen on Twitter a few months back from an analysis account that I can't find now anymore, was that the sensible transfer and Edwards transfer would have been Kudus while he was still in the Eredivisie. Before West Ham got him. That was the type of transfer that we really could have made at that time. And that's how I feel as well. I feel like Jurgen was a great manager. Obviously, I don't think we have to have a conversation about that. But ever since he got a bit more, let's say, he was a bit more in charge when it came to transfers, and we saw that maybe that's not his strongest skill. So, okay, Michael, I'm gonna have your say. I'm gonna let you have your say, obviously, on Darwin Nunez as well. For me, as Stu said, he probably has to go in the summer, and then we'll have to see who comes in. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he's not even anywhere near average. And this, like you said, this discussion have been going for seasons, almost all through since he came into the team. And there's this thing that comes with the amount of money being paid for a player. I mean, so much will be expected from you, and coming in at a time when the team was needing like this very solid attack up front, with balls coming from Diaz and Salah. I mean, we expect somebody that would just be chipping in the goals, the balls into the net. And sometimes I wonder what we saw in Nunes that made us just keep that heavy amount of money on him. I mean, it's just way too much. When that buy came in, I was like, what? Of all the players in the world, Nunes, what exactly is special about this guy? I mean, and right now I'm not wrong. And a lot of people see reasons why. I mean, Nunes need to go. I mean, in fact, after the first season, he should have been loaned. That is, if there's no restriction as to why he shouldn't be sent out. I mean, go learn how to play football somewhere and then come back to Liverpool if need be. Because right now, I see practically almost no contribution from him in the team. And it makes me miss Jota a lot. I would have even maybe we try one of the young stars, if we have any, that is thriving in the under 21 team. Have them come try that, play the front row, and then let's see what happens with that. Because I mean that would even give maybe help Nunes improve a bit. Because right now it's just been struggles every week. I know that most Liverpool fans would just have been trying their best to respect him a lot, not to say some things that might be shitty out there, right? But I mean, it is what it is. He's actually not performing as expected, and it's not the fault of anybody if they say that he should leave at the end of the season. I agree with that.
think one explanation of the sum that was the amount that was paid for Darwin Nunez is as Muse said, you sometimes have to buy the potential as well. And I feel like this happens a lot in this market now. When you buy a young player, like it's been the same with, let's say, for someone like Havertz when he joined Chelsea. I feel like that's another type of transfer that's similar in a way, because Havertz at that time, you can necessarily say he was worth the money that they paid for him, but he was young. He was one of the best players in his position. Maybe he's best upcoming players in his position at the time, and that kind of made Chelsea spend a bit more than he would have liked. Maybe that didn't work out, and it seems like this one didn't work out either, but obviously we're gonna have to wait and see, maybe till the end of the season. And yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work, and that's a good life advice to take into relationships, work stuff, anything you want to take it into. Yeah, okay. One thing also is, I want to get your last thoughts on the weekend. We are going to have to play Fulham, obviously, at Anfield. And Reese, not necessarily the easiest of games, as we've discussed, but it is at Anfield. And it's maybe like another strong 11 before getting a rest midweek versus Southampton.
I'm looking forward to the game, obviously, because the Merseyside derby was postponed due to the weather conditions. So, good. Looking forward that we'll be back playing in the Premier League. I don't think it's going to be an easy game, but I'm confident. I do think Liverpool will win. I think the way we play now, where it's kind of more controlled, it's not necessarily going to be you attack, I attack. It's more probing. I expect for them to be under a lot of pressure. I do expect it to be a difficult game, because most teams kind of treat playing Liverpool as a cup final. We've seen that with Newcastle, where they played really well against us, but then a few weeks ago, before that, they randomly lost to West Ham, and then straight after playing us, they were in a high-scoring game against Brentford as well. So I think he's going to go with his strongest 11. I do think Ali's probably going to go back into number one, because I think he did mention that when he was asked about who his number one choice is, if they would keep Kelleher in, and he did say Ali goes straight back in. I expect a similar team. The only difference I would say is if Jota's not available, I think Diaz will play through the middle, and then I think Gakpo will be on the left. Obviously McAllister, I think will be missing for that game because of the suspension, I'm assuming. So then I expect it to be Gravenberch, Curtis Jones, and Szoboszlai. Defense, that should be interesting. I'm not sure who he's going to pick. I know he picked Gomez today, but he might pick Kwanzaa on the weekend. I'm not sure. I expect Robinson and Trent to play. So more or less a similar team. I think we'll win. But yeah, I don't think it will be a straightforward game.
Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting is that I can't wait to see Diogo Jota back, and probably I'm guessing at the weekend he might get some minutes in towards the end of the game, probably. So yeah, for me personally, I don't know if it's everyone who thinks this way, but for me, I just really dislike playing against Fulham. I feel like there's just such a good side, and Silva hasn't playing. They can play really good football when they want to, and they can keep a pretty good low block as well. And you just mentioned that you dislike that tactic, and you're probably going to see it again this weekend. So
probably. I agree with Reese on this one. Actually, I think they are. I don't think it's going to be as chaotic as it has been. I think it's going to be a little bit more controlled. But I also think we're actually going to start with the same starting 11. I think it's going to be the same team as tonight. Main reason for thinking that, whilst obviously you guys were chatting, I was just having a look at a couple of comments from Slot after the game. He's not happy. He is not happy at all with that, especially the first half performance. I wouldn't say he's bored. I'd say he's probably bordering on angry. at the performance, judging by the comments. So I think they're probably going to have a bit of a kick up the arse, and it'll be the same team that starts from tonight. Will be starting against Fulham. Hopefully, starting at a higher pace and a higher tempo, because I think that's what's needed. Because as you say, the low block tactic is disgusting, but it works really well against teams like us. So we need to keep that tempo up and moving the ball as quickly as possible. I still think Nunes will start on the weekend as well. I still think he'll start him. I don't think Jota's quite ready, and I don't think he wants to risk him, considering his injury record. So I do think it'll be the same starting 11. I think we'll win as well. I do think we'll win.
I think one thing that I can be a bit more, let's say, not as concerned about as the last few seasons is, I think us under Slot, I think we're a bit more composed. We do have that, first 15 minutes usually in games where we kind of, I feel like we're not as high tempo and high, and with the same gegenpress as we were under Jürgen, and we could just study the opposition a bit for like the first 15. I don't think we've seen Liverpool, try to basically smother their opponents in the first 15 minutes as much as we've seen them under Jürgen. It's a bit more studying the opponent and seeing where the game goes, and that's how I feel like it will go at the weekend as well. It will probably be like a slower first 15 minutes, and then we're gonna see, figure out ways to get past them. I do feel like with Jürgen, we would struggle a lot more with low block teams than we are now with Slot. And I don't know if that's something that you necessarily agree on, but it's just something that I feel like it's a bit. Are we too slow? Because it feels like we are intentionally being a bit slow, and methodical.
I think it just feels like that because of what we've been used to for the last 7 years or so, or 8 years, whatever it has been. We're used to that fast-paced football. Now we're having to be a little bit more measured about things. Yeah. So we're still in the adjustment period. Yeah. Let's not forget, it's still only a few months into what the new manager is bringing in, so we're going beyond our wildest dreams for this season already. Yeah. So let's just try and remember that we're still only a few months under a new regime, so to speak, and it's going to take time to get all the kinks ironed out. But so far, it's working out all right.
What I would say as well, similar to Stu, is that I think the players are still adjusting to what Slot wants. Obviously, the more talented players will kind of adapt quite quickly. You've seen certain ones, maybe Curtis, Jones, certain players where it suits their style of play, of how they play, they'll kind of just blend in, sort of thing. But I do think that it kind of benefits us. I do think it's part of the tactics as well, because most games, it looks like what Slot kind of does, from what we've seen, is that it's kind of to figure out what the other team's going to do. So it's like we don't necessarily have the greatest first half. It's like we allow teams to come onto us, and then second half, he says whatever he needs to say to them in the dressing room, tweaks the tactics slightly, and it's like a tale of two halves, like Jekyll and Hyde. You got to remember as well that Slot hasn't signed anyone yet. So when he's able to get one or two players and he's able to get rid of the ones that are the deadwood, so to speak, you'll probably see things flowing a bit more. But it's more similar to like what Stu said. We're used to playing 100 miles an hour. So because it's not 100 miles an hour, to everyone it looks really slow. But if anything, it's just more controlled. I like exciting games, don't get me wrong, but not every game needs to be edge of your seat, your heart in your mouth, wondering like, are we going to win? Are we going to see this game out? Because obviously for the neutrals, it's great, but for me, it's about getting 3 points first and foremost. So if we got to win in a more like boring way, I don't really mind as long as we get the 3 points.
I think the comparison that I've made on stream a few weeks back was that we were used to seeing someone like Jürgen, who's almost like a, in a heavy metal band, and now we're seeing a surge in at work. It looks like he's a lot more methodical, composed, and that's how I feel with football under Slot looks like. And as Jamie said, we are obviously defensively, we look a bit more responsible. So that's also one way to look at it. I feel like it's, as you said, we weren't expecting it to be to be where we are right now, so let's just enjoy the ride, see what happens, and obviously reassess later in the season. Michael, um Fulham at home, you were saying we could think about resting players. I definitely disagree with that. As I've said, this is one game that I don't want to see us resting anyone. Your thoughts on Fulham and Anfield at the weekend?
Okay, so yeah, for Fulham, why I feel like I said earlier, it's not like we're resting the entire strong members of the squad. I want to tweak a little on the what Sio had said earlier about almost all the players starting off against Fulham. I think the likes of Gravenberch might be rested for Elliott to come in. I think, like you mentioned, I think yourself or Reese mentioned, Kwanzaa might have to start that day so that we see what happens between either Van Dijk or Gomez. Or most likely, we see if Arnold will be rested for that day. And then up front, definitely, I don't know, but depends on the coach. But for me, I don't expect Nunes to start. I think Gapo would be a better. I mean, would be starting off ahead of Nunes on that day. So we might have the likes of Salah, Diaz, and Gapo starting on that day, and then Elliott starting off with Zoboslai and Curtis. Um, if that goes well, and then we can have the rest of the squad come in maybe in second half. I mean, just like Slot likes to do. I mean, I quite a number of analysts have been commenting on how Slot have been able to bring in the players at very critical points in the game where it seems like its tempo is dropping. And I want to also comment on what we just said some minutes ago about how slow our game have been. When we were fast, we were conceding much goals. If you observe, part of the reasons why we missed out on the league when we had just 1 point difference between Liverpool and Man City was because of the part of it was because of the number of goals we were conceding. We're conceding too many goals. I mean, if you check the number of goals we conceded while we're trying to score too many goals, it's almost close to what we were scoring at the time. So now, if you look at what is happening, we are conceding less goals and we are playing slow. Like Reese had mentioned earlier, what is important is what we get three points. If we get the 3 points, even if it's a goal per match and we are getting 3 points, it's better than conceding too many goals and then winning the matches only for you to end up losing the league because you've considered too many goals. So for me, I think um, it is a time, like Stu had mentioned, to study the squad for Slots. It's a time for the squad also to reimagine how the tempo and tactics is being done so that we don't end up playing the same way we've been playing earlier and the likes of Fulham and every other team just say, oh, it's the usual style that Liverpool is used to. So right now it is different, and that is why I think some teams are struggling to play against Liverpool the way they have been playing before. So you see, we all saw what happened against Man City. Everyone was expecting a bumper harvest of goals from Man City. I mean, from both ends, but it ended up being a one-sided game. And Liverpool had 3 points and also had goals, 2 goals, not too many goals, but at least that was good. So for me, like I said earlier, what Riza said, what is important, 3 points. We are in the developmental stage. We are changing the tactics is changing. We have a new coach. The team is trying to restructure, and then adjust to the new system of play. So that's what's important. At the end of the day, what is important is even winning the matches, and we are doing that. So I'm happy about it. For then finally for Fulham on Saturday with the squad, I don't expect us to lose. That is one. Secondly, I expect goals from that match. So if we were to talk of predictions and talk about if how it should go, I expect that Fulham should at least get a goal in that match against Liverpool. I expect that. It's not because it's not out of but it's just my thought about it. But I expect that Liverpool should not lose the match. I expect that goals should come up from that match. Possibly a 3-1 for Liverpool, but definitely not a loss for Liverpool. So I have no fears. That's basically what I'm saying. I have no fears about what will happen, irrespective of who starts against Fulham. I have no fears about how the match will go. So that's it.
Well, hopefully that's what we're gonna see at the weekend then. Okay, yeah. Well, I've seen Chiesa mentioned in the chat. Yeah. I don't know. It's December, and I think we've seen him play for like 75 minutes this season. It's like, the worst fears have come true with him. I feel like, realistically, with the amount you've paid for him, it was almost like a very high upside deal in the case it worked. Obviously, still very soon to kind of have any thoughts on him and his career at Liverpool, but sooner or later we're gonna have to start him playing some games, because 75 minutes per 6 months isn't necessarily the amount of time you want to see him play. So yeah, hopefully he'll start. I would expect him to start in the EFL Cup. Hopefully by then he would have his flu. He'll be healthy back again after the flu and after the multiple injuries that he's had up until now. So we're gonna have to wait and see. Cheers, everyone. Yes, thanks to. With that in mind, obviously, we're gonna end the stream. Thanks, Muse. That was a good message a good farewell message for everyone. Thanks to Reese, to Michael for joining tonight. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks to everyone over on Twitter. Make sure to come over to YouTube the next time. Subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the chat as well. Great stream and great comments from you, James. Once again, thank you. Your presence is much appreciated every time here with us. Have a great evening, and the robot as well. Yeah, that's it. You're gonna have the next time I'm going to see someone the next time I'm going to see someone in the chat refer to someone as the robot. I'm just going to assume it's Stu and not Holland. Well, that's where we are now. So yeah. Thanks to everyone. Cheers. Have a good night, and up the Reds.